Hi everyone, so I'm back taking a look at another no-name brand product, and this is from Mechrevo. You've probably never heard of them. I don't know how popular they are in China. It's the S1 Pro. Now this laptop to me is like an alternative, you could say, to Xiaomi's Mi Notebook Pro because it has a similar spec to the 2019 model and in some cases is even better. But it is smaller. This is only a 14-inch screen, but it's matte coated. It's an IPS panel, 1080p. It's got the Core i5-8265U, so that's a refresh. It's the Kaby Lake, it's the Whiskey Lake U. So a refresh of the Kaby Lake model. So it's slightly fast, about 10%. However, it's paired up to single channel RAM. But there's a good thing about it, it's upgradable. So if you're not happy with the 8GB, you can install up to 16 there. The only thing, of course, it's going to be just stuck in single channel. Unfortunately, it's not two sticks, just the one. It's got room for a 2.5-inch hard drive or SSD if you wanted to expand the storage. It's more of a cheaper option using 2.5-inch drives than, say, an M.2 one. It supports M.2 NVMe's PCIe drives or SATA 3. It has an installed 512GB one.
So accessing the internals is not difficult. You just have to remove all of the screws on the bottom. Now they use a Torx T3, and once they're off, just pry it up. Need a little bit of force. Comes off nicely, so you can see this is where we can add a 2.5-inch hard drive. So this is good. You can put, say, your 2TB one in here for cheap, extra large storage, or go with an SSD, say 512GB. Now we do have a slot right here that is a combo slot. So the original SSD in there is just SATA 3, but my Samsung 970 EVO, as you can see that I have installed already, is working just fine at its full proper maximum speeds. So the battery here, this is a 50 watt-hour battery, so it is smaller than what is in Xiaomi's Mi Notebook Pro. That one is, just off the top of my head here, 60 watt-hours I think, and I could get up to 10 hours with that one, but as you see later on, we are going to get less with this particular battery here. So some more positives, we do have upgradable RAM, which is great. So if you get the 8GB version, it is however single channel, but you can install 16GB. And the RAM they have used, it is proper brand RAM, as you can see. Crucial, and the speed of it is 2666 megahertz CL19. So the wireless card isn't upgradable. It's part of the motherboard. It is just under here. So they've got some tape over the connectors here so those don't accidentally pop off when in transit. It's an Intel Wireless AC 9560, which is a 2x2 antenna setup. It's a gigabit wireless card here with Bluetooth 5. So it is a very good one. So I don't see really any needs that you'd want to upgrade this anyway. But you can, of course. It's soldered to the motherboard. Left and right stereo speakers, so these are not as good as the ones that you'll find in Xiaomi's Mi Notebook Pro, which have much better bass. These ones, they're okay, they do have a hint of bass. And the cooling, so we have 2 copper transfer thermal pipes here, 2 fans, this is good. And in this review, I will definitely cover the thermals and fan noise. Now the only logo that you will find on this laptop is this right here, which is the Mechrevo logo, and that's it. There's no text or anything like that on the bottom bezel, which is great. So the weight is 1.57 kilos. Then with the power adapter and cable, it brings it up to then 1.8, your total travel weight. The power supply is nice and small. It's 65 watts. Of course, it does get hot when it's being pushed hard, the laptop. And it's using one of those Mickey Mouse style connectors, which are very easy to source. So for ports on the left, we have HDMI 1.4a, so it should be HDMI 2, especially in 2019. Oh, and a Kensington lock slot is there, USB 3 port, and an SD card reader. Now you can see the cards stick out hugely. It only accepts about a quarter of the card there, so it's very easy to break them off, and it maxes out at about 28 megabytes per second reads and writes, so not supporting your ultra high speed cards, unfortunately. And then on the right side there is a status LED there that you can see, so that's blue when it is fully charged, red when charging. We have gigabit LAN, which is great to see this port on here, and then another USB 3 port, USB 3 Type-C, so unfortunately it does not support video out and power delivery charging. Do not attempt to plug in any power delivery adapter into this. You could risk damaging it. You could fry the motherboard. So I would highly recommend just never go and test that out because it's not going to support it anyway. 3.5mm headphone jack with microphone support. That does have good audio output. It's quite loud and it doesn't have any annoying white noise static over it. Same goes for the keyboard. This is a decent keyboard, good feedback from them, good spacing of the keys considering it's a 14-inch laptop. I think they've done well. Now I would have preferred them to have moved the power button over to here. It has the same exact amount of pressure, the feedback from it, just like all the other keys. So you can accidentally tap that one and end up putting the laptop into sleep. It is backlit. As you can see, the backlight is on right now. You've got two different levels of brightness. And the good thing about this backlit keyboard is it's not like others that can be sometimes a little bit blinding. Just underneath, for example, the spacebar or the keys, you get a lot of light coming through, which can be annoying. But as you can see here, it's very minimal. So overall, it is a decent keyboard. There is no bounce and flex either when pressing the keys. So I happen to like it, and the plastic they're using, it is matte coated as well. So our screen here is matte coated, and it is an anti-glare screen, so that is a good thing here. Maximum brightness is 292 lux. Images do look good. We've got an Adobe RGB of 64% and sRGB of 76%. So it's not an amazing screen in terms of color gamut and no brightness really, but having it being a matte screen, it means that it's still usable in bright environments. Like right now I have our brightness set to about 50% here, which I find is perfect for indoor use, even perhaps a little bit too bright. I set it normally to about 40, and on the lower setting it does dim right down nicely, and I don't find it to be overpowering, especially with late time use. So that's right up on maximum brightness, which I have to lower down, otherwise it's just overexposing with my current camera settings. So all in all, a decent screen, and the bezel around the outside here, so this is matte as well, so it's not like it's a glossy plastic they've used. It's not going to be reflecting and getting in the way there. So I had to install Windows all over again. I mean, it did come with Windows 10 in Chinese, so what I did is grab the latest ISO image off Windows website, made a USB pen drive, and did a complete clean new install. That way it's in English, and you do have a CD key on there, which is Windows 10 Home. So as long as you install Windows 10 Home, it'll pull through and it will set up to fine. Drivers, no issues with that. They actually all came through from Windows updates and have pulled through there. You can see there's nothing that's listed there that is an issue. So we have for our network adapters here, I wanted to point out Intel's wireless AC. This is the 9560 dual band wireless AC with Bluetooth 5. This is a very fast, this is gigabit wireless AC that it has on here. So it's really quick. This is one of the quickest cards you can get. So that is great. So even though we can't upgrade, as I showed you looking at the internals, we're still going to get some of the best throughput you can get through this. So connect up to FTP server, you're looking at about 800 megabits per second. With my current setup at home, here it's a little bit slower because of the wireless router that I have connected up with my fiber line. And you'll see the processors. So it is the Whiskey Lake U. This is a refresh of the 8250U. So the 8265U is the same. Quad core, 8 threads. And the performance, I will quickly demonstrate just a few benchmarks here and what you can expect performance-wise. I know a lot of people will be asking about this. So here are some scores here. So Cinebench R15, 562 CB. This is a decent kind of score for this particular CPU. It's, of course, not as fast as other Core i7s or Core i5s you will get out there, but overall not too bad. OpenGL score there as well, using that NVIDIA MX250. I do have Geekbench 4 right here. Came out to be a little bit lower than expected, and it's probably because the RAM's configured just in single channel and not dual channel. It's just that single, of course, SODIMM that we have that I showed you. Now, when you take a look at performance of other things like 3D Mark here, I did run the benchmark. I'll just quickly show you the results of that. Firestrike here, it's nothing amazing. If you were going to game on this, I will give you some gaming, a few examples here in this particular video, that you can play newer titles on the lower settings and older titles on high settings. We've got 3,641 for the graphics score. Physics score is 6,500. So again, that's nothing amazing there, but a decent performance overall. Now, right here in the background, I do have Adobe Premiere Pro open, so you can edit 4K videos on this. Encoding time, you're looking at 1 minute of footage is going to take about 3 minutes to encode that. And the fans are on right now constantly when it's on AC. You will hear the fan, a little bit similar to, say, the Mi Notebook Pro here. And no problems with editing, the speed. It's just, again, not going to be the fastest out there. Now, I do have spreadsheets. The spreadsheet's open here. No problems with that. The CPU handles all this kind of basic computing. So internet, Chrome, documents, spreadsheets, all really quick. No need for me to go into any real details there with that. But what I will do is just quickly bring up here a YouTube 4K video just to show you the performance of this and how it streams on the maximum setting. So this is Costa Rica. Beautiful clip, by the way. So actually we'll set this to 4K 60 full screen. Now bear in mind that I am running everything in the background here, so I'm doing some multitasking too, just to show you how it's going to run. So you can see here the stats, 2 drop frames. I mean, that's normal that it'll drop a couple, but this is running perfectly, very smooth. So HEVC files, VP9, it's going to decode them natively with the GPU, so they run perfectly fine. So very decent performance out of this laptop. Now my test with battery life, this is internet, so this was Chrome streaming, Amazon Prime Video as well. I was watching some episodes of The Boys, highly recommended. It's probably not for everyone, it's a little bit crazy at times, but a good series. But anyway, I managed here elapsed time 4 hours, and that was at 50%. So my calculations, you're going to get anywhere from about 6 to 8 hours, depending on what you are doing here. So the 50 watt hour battery, it's not as big as I would have hoped for, but of course they had to give up on battery capacity in order to put in that 2.5-inch hard drive bay that's there. So if they didn't include that, they probably could have crammed in 65 watt hours, I think, and it would have gone for even more. So charge time of this battery, it's just under 3 hours, approximately 2 hours and 50 minutes. So you can game newer titles as Call of Duty World War II, as long as you just lower the settings. So this is 720p, the textures are 720p. We do have a bit of a limitation with that, just 2 gigabytes of dedicated RAM. There is a limit to the amount of textures, so putting that on high or medium textures would just be way too demanding for this particular GPU, and we would run into then some stutters and performance issues, which of course we don't want. So you can see the frame rate hovering around 50 frames per second. This is actually quite good considering how demanding this particular game is. So an even more demanding game like Witcher 3 here, this is 720p again, does have some micro stutters, some frame dips down to 30 frames per second, but yet again, it is playable as you can see. So if you wanted to play a little bit of Witcher on the side, it is definitely possible with these settings hovering. You can see around the mid 40s here with the frame rate. Now this is in the city, and why I always test this one here is because there's a lot of NPCs around, and that's where the performance tends to lag. Because out in the wilderness, you'll find the frame rate will be probably about 10 frames per second on average higher. That brings me to thermals, so they're okay. You can see the maximum temperatures, it's getting up to 92 degrees, and this did trigger thermal throttling, which happens at 90 degrees. So it's not ideal to see this. I would have hoped for slightly lower, but when it got up to the 92, this was pushing it hard gaming. Okay, so if you're just docks, things like that, light computing, then temperatures will hover around the 70s, and as mentioned, that fan is always going to be on. It's low, it's not too offensive, not too bad. It's just when you push it hard gaming, that is when you see those peak temperatures there. And if I move down and take a quick look at the GPU temps, that one maxes out gaming at 80 degrees, which you could say is a little hot. So after leaving it on now for 30 minutes gaming, you can see that the laptop does get particularly hot right around this area, just above the keyboard, 46 degrees. So this is only when gaming, so we're pushing both the GPU and CPU to the maximum. I'll give you a sample now of the fan noise you can expect too while gaming. I will briefly show you the BIOS before I go into boot Linux and test that out. So you cannot really tweak anything. Under advanced settings, we have very limited options here. So it's not a fully unlocked BIOS. Unfortunately, we couldn't go in here and undervolt, for example, increase power limits. Not open to us. So for booting over now into Linux, I'm just going to change the boot order to my external pen drive, save and exit, and we'll see how Linux runs on this. As you can see that Linux Mint runs fine, but the touchpad does not work. That's the only thing I've found that isn't working. Wireless is detected and working. You can control the screen brightness. Audio too is working. It's just that touchpad you're going to have to dig around and try and find drivers for.
Alright, so for the $699 US, yes, there are a few things on here where they have clearly cut corners. So it doesn't have an NVMe SSD, it's SATA 3. 512 maxes out at about 550 megabytes read and writes. It's your typical SATA 3 speeds there. So it would have been nice if we had, say, a Samsung PM981, which would be a lot quicker. That gets like 350 reads sequential out of that. But it does have very fast wireless AC, a decent keyboard, I like it. It's backlit, the smaller size, the 14 inches, means that this is a lot more portable, and it's about 400 or so grams lighter than, say, Xiaomi's Mi Notebook Pro as expected. The battery capacity is smaller, 50 watt hours. You're going to get anywhere from about 6 to 8 hours, which is giving us okay battery life. I would have liked to have seen at least 8 to 10 hours, but they gave up on some of that battery to give us space for a 2.5-inch hard drive, which is a good option to have. I like the fact that it has a LAN port on here as well, and the performance is very good. The screen is decent. Now, it's probably not good enough for most people to do, say, color coding work and grading and things like that. But for the average consumer, the average Joe out there, this is still going to be a decent panel. The brightness, it's anti-glare. Overall, that's good. Now, the webcam, I haven't given you a sample, but it's as expected. It is average, okay, the quality. It's supposed to be 720p, which it is, but it's supposed to be 30 frames per second, and it's only about 15 or 20, so a little bit choppy, not particularly amazing good quality with that. So it doesn't have Windows 10 in English. You need to fix that by doing a complete clean install is the easiest way, or you could upgrade to Windows 10 Pro, which I often do, and then add an English language pack, which is a little bit more hassle there, but for free, you can just create one of those pen drives, install it, it pulls through the Windows home license it has on there, and it says it's activated with a digital license. So that at least is a workaround for that. So the particular things I don't like about it is the fact that when you're pushing it very hard, it will reach 92 degrees on the CPU. The GPU gets up to 85, and in this area up here, does get very warm. So that's probably my biggest concern there. If they were going to be gaming for long extended periods, I would definitely prop it up a little bit. Once you do this, that helps the cooling. So we do have the 2 copper thermal transfer pads in there, pipes that I showed you, which is good to see, and the 2 fans. The fan noise is okay. It's currently on at the moment. Most of the time it is on, but it's very low. It's not offensive or annoying, but it gets a little annoying when gaming at about 46 decibels, but nothing like a gaming laptop. The gaming performance, as you saw, so with demanding titles on lower settings, they can be played, but limited to, say, 720p there. But anything that's a lighter engine, for example, League of Legends, Counter-Strike, 1080p, and high to max settings is going to be playable, which is good. So overall, it's a nice laptop. I love the fact that you can upgrade the RAM in this. I wish Xiaomi had that too. Very fast wireless. And of course, it does sell for a decent price, I think. The $699 is certainly a lot cheaper than the $900, $950 for Xiaomi's Mi Notebook Pro. But the speakers too on this, poor, quite poor. Compared to Xiaomi's, yeah, definitely don't stand a chance. So if you can afford it, I still highly recommend going for the Xiaomi Mi Notebook Pro. Better speakers, slightly better keyboard, it's larger of course, and a glossy screen, well, that really depends on your own preference. So overall, the Mechrevo for me as a brand looks interesting now, so I might review more of their products and buy them in the future. It all depends on the price, of course, and the spec of them, but I feel for the $699, there's some compromises, but overall you are getting a decent package. But if you intend to game, well, you shouldn't really be gaming with an MX250 anyway. You probably want to get yourself something that's got, say, a GTX 1650, like the laptop I recently reviewed. You can catch the review of that one right up here. And thank you so much for watching this review. Bye for now. Hope to catch you back with my future videos.